Hello, fellow quarantined, and welcome to episode 44 of From the Middle. I'm Corey Hubble. Do you guys want to say who you are?
I'm Dylan Hubble.
Hey.
And that's Kendall Alala. And we are three middle-class guys in the middle of America, in the middle chapters of our lives, and a point of view that's somewhere in the middle. That's wrong. It doesn't matter. You get the idea. That's why we named it From the Middle. Episode 44. Is that right? 44?
Did you say 44?
Yeah. 44.
That doesn't feel right.
I feel
Did we do 40? Did we do 44?
No, we did not do 44.
We did not do 44.
44. Episode 44 From the Middle, and we are excited. We have a few fun ideas of some of the stuff we're going to get into tonight. But before we do that, let's do a quick round of updates. I would love to know how my fellow co-hosts are doing. Guys, how's the quarantine treating you? We don't want to spend too much time in Corona land, so let's just do a flyby.
What did it do, Kendall?
Oh, we're doing okay. We're hunkered down. We've got our ammo stockpiled, and the concrete bunker has been stocked full of toilet paper and water. So we should be okay. Yeah. So the grenades are all active, and the automatic missile defense system is operational.
Good. Dylan, how are things in New York?
Good. Still working from home. We go out and try to get outside, play in the backyard. I take walks. It's good for my heart. So go out and do that. Get outside. Just, we're all watching stuff right now. So, like, I'd never watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine before, which is a very popular show. Yeah. And I'm something like season 5 of that. I've been watching through that. We just finished Tiger King, and I'm told there's more content coming to Tiger King. A bonus.
Really?
That's what I hear. Yeah.
A second season or some bonus content or something. I don't know, but a little more Joe Exotic. So it's exciting. So, doing what kind of everyone's doing, just trying to stay sane. And we had actually started to, there's so many like grocery delivery and food delivery services and stuff. We'd been doing Home Chef. This week will be week 2 of like getting like, here's the whole meal and the recipe and you just prepare it. Bree found some like super good discount for like a month's worth of that. We'll probably keep it going for a little bit after just to kind of keep the food flowing to the front door. But yeah, it's cool. Home Chef is good. Catching up on shows, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Tiger King, doing what everybody else is doing. Hanging out with family and Zooming and FaceTiming a ton. Feels like every day, at least once a day, we're FaceTiming or Zooming somebody. So it's good.
Nothing makes you feel better during a quarantine like watching a little Joe Exotic and really feeling good about yourself and your surroundings.
You know what? I tell you what, Joe Exotic. So Amy and I have not had Netflix for a long time. And after a discussion that she had with y'all's wives, she decided that we needed to get Netflix to watch Tiger King. And so we did. And it's weird. It's odd for sure. But I feel like for me, it was like it got hyped up so much that it wasn't quite weird. Like it was still believable weird. It wasn't the amount of weird that I was expecting. I guess I don't know. I was expecting a murder to happen, like, or multiple, maybe even. I don't know what exactly I was expecting, but I remember thinking like, yeah, this guy is really strange and odd, but I probably know people like him, and I want weirder than that.
I was trying to describe it to somebody, and I said, imagine a handful of the most dramatic characters that had ever been on Jerry Springer. And then there's a murder plot, and they all raise tigers. Yeah. And that's the best way I can.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I do enjoy being able to understand a whole lot more memes now.
Oh man, there were so many memes I was missing out on, so it's good.
Yeah.
I just have to mention my favorite meme was when they said Tiger King was so crazy that when this guy rolled up in a slingshot with a skeleton in the passenger seat, I didn't question it, and the show didn't feel a need to explain it. From the guy with no legs, and he drives that neon-colored slingshot around. They're following up with him after everything went down, and there's a skeleton in the passenger seat. Nobody says anything about it.
By the way, he's our reasonable one. It's going to testify because he's the most trustworthy of all.
Man.
He is. He's the straightest shooter of them all. Well, with one exception, and that was the other thing what does it say that like the most normal person is the Walmart manager turned campaign manager?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So true.
Super reasonable. And any other internet circle, he would be the odd man out, but not in this bunch. And speaking of memes, anything that anyone does with the quote, I'm not going to be able to financially recover from this after it, I usually laugh. Because somebody gets mauled or shot or something, and the first thing Joe Exotic says is, I'm never going to be able to financially recover from this. I love it.
So funny.
Yeah.
A lot of good memes. That was a crazy show. Things are okay here. Getting outside as much as I can. Thankfully, this is all going on when the weather is nice here in the Midwest. I know, Kendall, you have allergies, so you might disagree. But we've had some really beautiful days. And Greg and I actually got out on the motorcycles the other day. That was really nice. And so we're trying to get outside as much as we can to sort of stave off some of the cabin fever. But everything is okay here.
Good.
Speaking of TV shows, so before the beginning of the quarantine arc, which was a few episodes ago, we had our own award show called the Middies, where we awarded, like they used to say in Whose Line Is It Anyway, the game where the points don't matter.
They officially changed the term EGOT to MEGOT.
Exactly. So we gave awards for a bevy of our favorite things, console games, mobile games, movies, birds,
artists.
Yeah. But we forgot to mention our favorite TV shows. So as a sort of bonus round to the Middies, I thought we would start with, let's go through some of our favorite TV shows, but we don't have to do of the past decade. Let's just do of all time, and we'll see where that takes us. How's that sound, fellas?
Sold.
Hey, it sounds like we planned it that way.
It was supposed to feel organic.
Oh, sorry, and I GMO'd it all up, didn't I?
And I know how you love the word organic.
I'm okay with the word organic.
Okay.
It's those chemicals I can't stand.
Is it? Did I miss a joke?
It's okay. You missed an attitude.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of goes with startup culture and hipsters and.
Yeah, I would be blind to the joke then, anyways. All right.
Okay.
No, that's all right.
So, favorite TV shows of all time. Dylan, you're a. It wouldn't be cinephile because that's movies. What do they call those who?
Whatever that is for both. And actually, it was surprisingly easier to narrow down than I thought. Like, I was looking at the list, and for anyone listening or watching, we have kind of a combined note that we work off of to share ideas and things like that as we're talking through. And mine was surprisingly short. It's a handful of sitcoms and then some dramas. And so I'm a big sitcom guy. I like the rewatchability factor. Not everyone is into that. So naturally, I had shows like The Office is definitely in there. Frasier, Friends, Seinfeld. All of those are going to be like some of my favorite of all time and all highly rewatchable. And I've seen a lot of the other ones that get a lot of love. You'll hear a lot about like I just mentioned Brooklyn Nine-Nine is rewatched a lot, but also Parks and Rec and Arrested Development and some of those. I wouldn't say those are my top sitcoms. The four I mentioned are definitely The Office, Seinfeld, Frasier, and Friends. Those four are definitely some of my favorites. And then Band of Brothers and Star Trek: The Next Generation. And Band of Brothers is hard. It was on TV. It was HBO. It was a mini series, so we had a lot less of it. And really, it's just an extended film, as far as I'm concerned. But since it's technically television, I'm going to include it. And just incredible. And the Pacific didn't do the same for me either, so I wouldn't include the Pacific on HBO. It was Band of Brothers and then I had to include at least one Star Trek. So I felt like I had a reasonably short list. That's not going to surprise many people because it's kind of, you're going to find all of those. If there's a 100 best TV shows ever of all time, all of those are probably going to be on it. I can't think of any that wouldn't make the top 100 of all time list, but yeah, it's a short list, but definitely my favorite shows.
So when you first suggested this as a premise, you also included any of your favorite moments from those shows, or just sort of their cultural impact? Like, do you have any favorite moments from any of the ones you mentioned?
Yeah, there's certainly things that pop out to me about all of them, but I probably general thoughts around some of those. I can give you a very specific one from The Office. And it's so funny. The Office is one of those shows where if you pull up like the funniest moments from The Office lists from different sources, they rarely agree, which is really interesting to me because there's a lot of different moments. But one thing that stands out to me from The Office is Andy Bernard first shows up in Scranton and is really starting to bug Michael. And at one point, they catch Michael hiding behind his own office door and inside his own office. Yeah. And Andy's kind of looking for him and finally passes by. And you see Michael just talk to the camera from behind the door and say, "I don't understand how somebody can have so little self-awareness." And it's my favorite line because it's like pot calling the kettle black, man. It's the whole show summed up in one line that I just think is brilliant. And it's one of those moments that it's not traditional slapsticky funny. And even if Michael were delivering it seriously, I still think it's hilarious. But he does kind of deliver it serious, and he is kind of legitimately annoyed. But I feel like it's that depth of humor that it's just so good in the show. Friends and Seinfeld are a lot of nostalgia. Because those were shows that I watched frequently. Those were the heavy rerun shows in my teenage years that got repeated all the time. And then, so I don't have any specific that I want to mention. We all know Seinfeld is that at times really dry, sarcastic, annoyed. It's really the prequel to Sebastian Maniscalco, if we're talking about, liking Seinfeld and then why I like Sebastian. It's that annoyed by people, observational type of humor. That you see a lot in Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David, which he continued on with HBO. And then Friends is just really sweet. Frasier, to me, it's a combination of all those things that I think rounded me out as a person, because now you've got the sweet, sincere humor of Friends. You've got Seinfeld that's the annoyed, kind of mockery of people and things that they do and nitpicking. And then you've got Frasier that's this like dynamic, he's the hothead, but then you've got this like cultured, sophisticated, just, it's really dry. I'm blanking on the word right now, but it's this level of wit that's also just beyond most of the audience, his audience within the universe. I'm not saying within the people actually watching. So it's like a combination of all these things that I grew up on that like molded my sense of humor over time into whatever weird, dark, twisted thing that it is now.
That makes a lot of sense.
But I love it. You've got the brother interaction and how they feed off of each other. It's just really great. I love the wit of that show. And it never stops. He goes from just either getting outright annoyed by people to this air of pretension that is just funny. Band of Brothers and The Next Generation. Man, Band of Brothers, there's so many good moments. honestly, because it's only 10 episodes, if somebody's never seen it, they should just watch it. It's worth signing up for a free trial of HBO just to go in and binge it and be done with it. But yeah, there's the major character, his relationship with all of the men around him, and especially kind of his best buddy. There's too much to get into to unpack really quickly. Maybe we'll share a best of highlight something on our social channels that people can kind of check out some clips from it. But there's a lot. And then the next generation, I've always liked Patrick Stewart. And so to get to see 7 years of character development with a really good cast around him, the whole show's great. It's a little slow to start, but Patrick Stewart alone is worth watching multiple seasons of good sci-fi. So that's as quick as I could do all of those episodes without cutting you guys off.
No, you're good.
Good.
Kendall, what about you, buddy?
All right. This is where, a couple of these let me put it this way, reiterate again. I've mentioned it once before that the way you guys feel about certain things of media, about like your favorite movies and your favorite TV shows, like you guys are at a level of with your favorites like way up here. And for me, my favorites are still kind of like I saw it once and I liked it. And I didn't watch it 15 times, so no, I don't remember like everything. So my favorites, my favorites of my favorites, I've only seen once. But part of that is me too. Like I don't like so one thing that doesn't hinder my list is the rewatchability, because I'm not interested in, even if it's a silly sitcom, like I'm not interested in reruns. If I've already seen it, it's not going to entertain me again.
I don't relate at all, but I find that fascinating.
Yeah, so that's like, my favorite episode of The Office, like I would not find as enjoyable the second time, and so why would I choose to do that? I would instead choose to watch something else. But so Parks and Rec is on my list. This is not in any particular order. The Arrested Development. So the really weird humor I'm a fan of. If you can find weird humor, I like it. Seinfeld, already mentioned. Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
That is just that as a drama series to me is tops. Like it has so many twists and turns, and it gives you the feels, and the end is something that like you kind of saw coming. But even still, I like everything about that series. For the most part, Deadwood is one that I felt like died too soon.
Mm.
That one, unfortunately, it was a Wild West series that I loved, and then it just kind of didn't get continued, and so like the story never finished, and that annoyed me. But the few seasons that exist, I enjoy. Walking Dead, Conan O'Brien has always held a special place in my heart. I think that NBC shot themselves in the foot when they promoted Conan the wrong way, and B, didn't give him enough time to get his audience there, to let his audience age enough that he'd be killing it right now. I like Jimmy Fallon too, but I would rather see Conan there. Friends. This is just going back to my grade school days, and loving Friends, watching that every day. And then Saved by the Bell again. So thinking back all time, like for the longest stint in my life, Saved by the Bell was everything. And more specifically, the beach resort episodes I loved. I used to get so excited when those ones came on. I don't know why, but I loved those.
I've never been able to pinpoint what gave those such a draw. Like, yeah. It felt so exhilarating that it was Like, oh my, what kind of trouble are they going to get into at the beach?
Exactly.
You know, it's like, it's the same trouble as the school. It's literally the wallpaper behind them. It doesn't matter.
So no, I watched Saved by the Bell every day after school, and then like when the season came around to switching over to the beach resort episodes, like there was just a different level of excitement there for those ones. Like it was like Shark Week, but Saved by the Bell.
And you always knew Mr. Belding would show up in some kind of tropical themed shirt, and he's like, "This is my vacation too, kids. Don't get me."
Yeah.
You know?
I just realized that I do the Mr. Belding laugh sometimes.
Awesome.
By the way, can I just say, when you were talking about a show being canceled too early,
Yeah.
if anyone ever listens to this that has any pull with the multinational conglomerations that own all of these studios, if a show gets canceled, can we all agree, as all the major networks, that if you cancel something early before arcs have ended, that you'll do 2 more episodes of the same length of the regular episodes to resolve it and place them in the summer when the shows are normally off anyways? I get so annoyed. Do it as you say you care about the fans, and then you just cut these shows off and you never resolve plots, and then like throw 10 more new ones out in the fall that everyone's supposed to care about. It just do 2 more episodes to resolve and wrap anything up. And then you can bundle them when you throw these streaming services or whatever, so people can have them resolved. It's so frustrating. I wish they would come to some kind of agreement to like resolve these arcs. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Multinational conglomerations.
So Disney.
NBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, PBS. I don't care. CW. I don't care who it is. If you've got a show that's run more than 6 or 7 episodes, you'll have 24 episodes in a year, and then they decide to just axe it, and all the plot lines are open.
Exactly. Yeah.
If it's a 22-minute show, do 2 more 22-minute episodes and just resolve as much as you can.
Yeah.
It just drives me crazy. Anyway,
that would assume that they care about people.
They don't. They do, because they want you to watch a new show, but they don't really care.
That was a little Aziz of you.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, apparently it's a thing that I do. But yeah, sorry, I'm done. I'm off my soapbox. It just drives me crazy.
So each of us had our own sort of criteria for our selections. And for me, part of it was like what it was like to watch these shows week to week, and the excitement and the water cooler conversations around it. So that kind of went into my thinking. When I was in college, Star Wars, Clone Wars were cartoons that got released on the internet and then Cartoon Network. This was not the computer animated Clone Wars that everybody's watching now. This was a 2-dimensional cartoon. Andy Tartakovsky was the mastermind behind it, and he did like Samurai Jack and those super bold outline characters. So in art school, all the Star Wars geeks would like be clicking refresh to wait for these episodes to come out so we could watch them, and that was a ton of fun. I have friends as well. I remember watching the finale and like setting our timers so that we were all sitting down to watch the finale. So that was like an event, and we knew we were going to talk about it with all of our friends the next day.
Yeah. Hey, kids, by the way, when you wanted to watch a particular episode of a show, you had to plan to do. You had to set aside that night. You weren't allowed to go anywhere, or you're going to miss it.
Yeah.
And that's the way things were.
We just lost Dylan. We just lost Dylan. So that's cool. I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Lost.
Lost
to me, and just me thinking about TV shows and the amount of people that were watching. Lost was like the epitome of water cooler conversation. People talking about, what did you think that meant? Because everything was so cryptic and cagey, and every episode you thought they were going to answer a question, and they asked 7 more questions than they answered. And so that was a lot of fun from just the social layer of it. Mythbusters. We've talked about my love of Adam Savage and Jamie Hyneman both, but that was just such a fun show. And the know-it-all side of me, like busting people's urban legends, and I enjoyed, like, from a science perspective, I could now be the guy in conversation that was like, that's not actually true. Beer before liquor, never sicker. Liquor before beer, you're in the clear. It doesn't matter. You can actually, to be that guy. Obviously,
different types of alcohol don't actually give you different kinds of hangovers. That's not a thing that happens.
The Office, for obvious reasons. I watched the British version too. I really enjoyed.
Did you watch the British version before the American version, or was it like I'm curious, I want to go back?
Yeah, curious, like, where did this all start, and then seeing it, and then understanding how they do TV shows in the UK. It's like 2 seasons and a Christmas special, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's the format. And
that's the way they roll. That's what they go. They go in expecting that
2 seasons and a Christmas special. Like, that's kind of the norm. Breaking Bad, we've talked about it on this show before when we talked about storytelling and character development. Like, just the character arc and the slow decay of Walter White's morals in that show, from dad who's just trying to take care of his family to drug kingpin, is one of the most interesting transformations in all of television. Awesome.
Yeah, if you're rating character development alone, like that, Breaking Bad, I think for me is by far the best I've ever seen.
Sons of Anarchy I had as well. I love that, let's take Shakespeare plays and then mash that into the world of a biker gang and just let it play out. So character arcs and paradigms of Shakespearean literature embedded and infused into a biker gang, of all things. It's super good. I have to thank hey, Dylan's back.
Welcome back, buddy.
We just kept going, man.
Good.
I love the show Alone. This is a survival reality show. I have to thank my friend Ryan, who told me about this show. Unlike Man vs. Wild or Survivor Man, this is a real competition. 10 people are surviving simultaneously in the wilderness, and they don't know when the others tap out to go home. And the last person standing wins like $500,000.
Are they camera crew or you're on your own?
They're doing their own camera work.
Okay.
And so they get regular medical checks and they get regular replacement batteries for all their equipment. So they do have some very limited human interaction, but they tell the staff not to engage them in conversation, not to hand the batteries, check their weight, check their blood pressure, leave. So it's minimal interaction, but they're all in the same general area, but they're far enough away from one another and separated by a natural barrier like water or a mountain range. So they don't even see each other's campfire smoke. They're not that close, but they are in the same general area so that they're all experiencing similar conditions, predators, and opportunities to get wildlife. Yeah. And so 10 of them go in at once, and they don't know when the others tap out. There's been 5 or 6 seasons. It's a blast.
Wow.
So good.
I've not heard of this.
It's so fun to I guess prejudge and go, oh, he'll last a while, or oh, she's not going to make it very long, and then be proved totally wrong. And also the fundamental choice people make between either building a really nice shelter and then using a lot of their energy and calories that way, or people who are like, I'm just going to get food. I don't care what my shelter looks like. Yeah. And that fundamental strategy, it's so good, so good. So that's called Alone on the History Channel. I tell so many people about this show, and then they're like, oh my gosh, we're hooked. We're on season 3 already. I'm like, it's been a weekend. They're like, we know. And then the last one is Live PD. This is I don't know if you guys know about Live PD.
I know of it. I've never actually watched it, but I'm aware of the phenomenon.
Cops was always kind of on in our house. Our dad was State Highway Patrol, so we had Cops in the background. from time to time, but Live PD, they are following simultaneously, I don't know, a dozen or so police and sheriff stations across the nation live. And whenever they see action on any one of those cameras of those 12 stations, they just cut to that action, whatever's going on. And they follow one in Franklin County here in Central Ohio.
I thought Franklin County kicked them out. I thought I read that.
They may have, but they were when I stopped watching not too long ago. So anyway, those are some of my favorite TV shows. What happened, Dylan? Where'd you go?
The interwebs cut out on me.
Well, you missed all the good stuff.
First world problems. I'm sure I didn't. So, just kidding.
Here's what's funny. As we were kind of listing each other's shows, and this is a shared note that we have on our phones. As we're sort of sharing our favorite shows, Dylan suggested another idea for our show, which was, let's talk about things that we could never really get into, or that we just completely missed the boat on, or that we tried and we don't understand what all the fuss is about. Now, we had this idea, I just want to say.
Yeah. Point this out to the people.
Weeks ago. We had this idea a long time ago.
We've been sitting on this for like a month. And so right now, if you're looking at the social media, everybody's doing the unpopular opinions thing. And I'm just here to tell you that we've had this idea. We've had our list compiled for over a month now. We were ahead of the curve, and now it's going to look like we're behind it, and we just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, we're not following the bandwagon. We started the.
We put the wheels on the thing.
We started the bandwagon. So
we started It's just nobody saw it yet.
You're following, you followers. We're the cool ones.
I do have a friend. They just go to a different school.
My girlfriend's real pretty. She lives in Canada.
You won't meet them because they don't live here.
Yeah.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about our unpopular opinions, or as we phrased it, things we could never really get into.
Which is much more catchy, I think.
So much more. All right, so we're going to take a little potty break, and we will see you guys in a mo. Dylan. What do you...
What is that? What do you do?
What do you think that is? You guys see that little green light right there?
What is that?
What do you think that is?
What?
I bet it's a government bean counters.
Bean counters.
I bet it's some of them folks out in D.C. trying to spy on me and see my goodies.
Oh my goodness.
Trying to get in my house.
Dylan, it's just us. It's just us.
I see you, coppers.
Is that Kendall? Is that what you've been working on this whole time?
Yeah. So my wife is essential, which means that I'm a teacher, and I teach art class, and so I.
Good job.
Taught my kids how to draw a spaceship. Dylan, are you with us?
I'd just like to apologize for what you just saw. Because of the quarantine, I no longer have any idea what's funny. So here we are.
He's losing his mind, and I'm reaping all the benefits.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. So we were talking about our favorite TV shows of all time. As we each made those lists, we noticed that some of our favorites are the other guys like, yeah, never really got into that. We talked about how we are the trendsetters, how this whole unpopular opinion thing on Facebook is actually our idea. And
in a very unapproachable manner, we explained that to people. And
Yeppers.
So I thought, we thought it'd be fun to talk about our unpopular opinions, the things we could never get into, or, I feel like I'm supposed to like this.
Yeah, that's the way I ran with it, by the way.
Okay.
I went down the road of the things that people know about me. They probably also assume this about me, but they're wrong. It's kind of, or because of who I am, because of what I do. Here are things that I feel like I'm supposed to be into.
Yes,
that's kind of the route I went.
So let me kick things off with this primo example. I wore this shirt in honor of tonight's episode.
You don't like bugs.
I feel like I'm supposed to like the Beatles.
Everyone is supposed to like the Beatles.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
You know how Old Navy and Kohl's have those really soft T-shirts? Like Old Navy.
Like the really thin ones?
Yeah, it's like really nice.
Yeah, they show your nipples.
Sure. And a lot of the artwork on them is like geek culture, music stuff. I got one of these from Old Navy. It's called Collectabilities. That's the line of T-shirts. And I just got it because, whatever. I feel like I'm supposed to like the Beatles, but I guess I appreciate what they did in music.
Here's the part where as you're explaining to people, you always have to be like, but I understand their genius. I'm just saying I don't like it. It doesn't resonate with me. I'm not saying I think their music is trash. I'm saying I don't.
Yep. It's exactly that.
Well, it's funny you say that because that was the first one on my list. And it was every time I say it to somebody, if that comes up, it's like, I don't really care for the Beatles. What? And you're like, no, look, I get
what percentage of them actually feel that way too? They're just having the reaction they feel like they should have when you say that.
I think there's a lot of phony outrage. I'm supposed to be upset that you don't like an iconic thing. It's fine. I get it. Their music's fine. It's just not something I'm interested in. I feel the same way about James Taylor.
Not our friend James Taylor, the musician.
Right. Yes, but yeah. So James,
not the bald one. The bald one.
Yeah.
The one that everybody else has heard of.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I started. You guys go.
All right. So things I can never get into. Literally skinny jeans.
Fair. Yeah. Also, that's not on my list, but it should be because I don't care for those either.
And then related, I'll just move on to the next one because that was just a cheap joke. Craft beer. Craft beer. So, like, you would think that I have a beard, and this is okay. I'm going to call this one out too. Corey and I were having this discussion when we were having the discussion about the fact that we thought of this unpopular opinion thing a long time ago, and now it looks like we're behind the trend, but really we're ahead of it. I want to tell people this, that I have had a beard since 2003. I have shaved it off since then exactly once, and it was only one shave. I grew it right back immediately after that. And even that was like a decade ago. So I just want to point that out about the facial hair thing. That this guy, I've had it long. Right now I have it kind of high and tight. I had long beard during those years, short beard. I had goatee for a while, just goatee. I have done just a mustache with like an elongated soul patch thing. I've done that before. Most of those years have been full on beard. And this is actually about the shortest it's been. So, just pointing that out.
The fact that you started with skinny jeans, craft beer, and beards
Yes,
you sound like a hipster who's trying to not be into hipstery things.
that is that you know what,
Um,
craft beer is something that I feel like I could get into, but I just don't have the energy and I don't care that much.
Yeah, you've already picked a fancy drink. Coffee is the thing.
Exactly, that's the thing.
You can't also care about beer and wine because then people are going to be like, all right, but
Well,
which
no.
one do you care the most about? Because I can only talk to you about one.
I think because I feel like most of the people who care about coffee in the ways that I care about coffee also care about craft beer in the
Sure.
way that they care about coffee.
Flannels,
And
the Ramones.
exactly, and I just don't. And I like beer. I really like beer. Um, I'm happy with the Yinglings and the Stella Artois and the beers that have been around for a long time. I'm perfectly happy with those. I don't feel like trying to keep up with the craft beer thing.
While we're on the topic, I have IPAs on my list.
Yeah.
Just, I don't even really like beer all that much,
Okay.
but IPAs especially. And it just got really trendy for a while there. And the hoppier, the better. And
They're quick and easy to make.
I was like, I don't know what we're doing. Why do we pretend like we like this?
I like, IPAs. I do like IPAs. Now that is like the craft beer staple. Like you've got to have 4 IPAs in your lineup, or you're not a craft brewery. It's basically the way it goes. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people. I feel like what you do. I happen to like IPAs, but I'm not trying to find weird new ones. I'm happy with Sierra Nevada being because back in my day, Sierra Nevada was the only IPA you were going to find in a grocery store. But I feel like, a lot of people are liking it because they're supposed to. Because I remember back then, like, I would have an IPA at me at a bar, and then somebody would want to try it, and then they would scrunch their nose because of how bitter an IPA is.
Yeah.
But that's a thing.
Okay. Dylan, your turn.
Most of the rest of mine are like movies and TV shows. We established earlier in this episode that I'm like, just enjoy a lot of movies and TV, but I'll give you one that doesn't, or that isn't on that list. Virtually every Facebook game. I've never played one. And I saw somebody tweeting or Facebook status or something about like, well, with all this extra free time, it's probably a good time to go check my farms I planted 8 years ago on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because that was such a trend, like the farming games and the mafia wars. And I just got so many invites. And that was probably around the time that I purged a lot of my friends.
Yeah.
My friends list, post college or whatever. But yeah, I literally never played one. I would ask people, my first question for any of those games were, does it require me do I have to interact with other people to be able to continue to play the game? Mm-hmm. Because if it does, I'm not interested. If it makes it harder, but I can play on my own, fine. But if I have to have another person to help me through the game, then no, I have no interest in doing that.
Yep.
Literally never played one. Almost everybody was playing them. Yeah. I pretty much missed that whole fad for years.
Sorry, I sent you a lot of those invites.
You did everyone.
Yeah, I never played any of those either.
That was a big fad, man. Lots of
people.
It
was, yeah. And I was just thinking, like, is that still like? Do those games still exist, or do just people don't play them anymore?
Probably exist, but I can imagine. I can only imagine that audience has just plummeted in size.
Yeah. So I don't see any of it anymore.
What were the most popular ones, Corey? You played several.
Farmville, Mafia Wars. I don't know what somebody's going to go, you forgot about, but like those are the big ones that I was seeing a lot of.
Yeah. Yep. Missed it.
Is that because the mobile gaming wasn't that great yet? And so because we were already on social and could also play a game while we were there?
Yeah. I think there was a lot less mobile devices in general, and the games you did have were very basic, like you said. You could get games that would have been similar to playing on a Super Nintendo or a Sega, or like better quality than the really basic mobile stuff with pretty decent, cutesy, fun graphics that we hadn't really had before. Most of the computer games were like card games, or you'd go to a Yahoo, games tab and do like billiards or something, because you only had a couple options of decent games to play.
Yeah.
As far as not like installing PC or Mac software, but like a website you could go to and just hit play.
Yeah.
Started. So yeah, it was a whole thing.
So
who's next?
These are fun.
These are fun. The Beatles, James Taylor, Facebook Games, the Beatles. Yeah, I think it's and IPAs. And you know what? Talking about music. Actually, I have a few that are about music, but I'll do one right now. So I'm a worship leader, right?
Right.
And I sing all of these worship songs, right?
Right.
I am not a fan, never have been. Do not really listen to CCM, contemporary Christian music. Just don't. Not a fan. I don't like it. Like I can't sit there and make myself listen to that for extended periods of time. So I don't listen to The River really ever. When I do, it very much feels like work and research, just so I can kind of see what's on the radio.
Yeah.
And my conclusion most of the time is most of these songs don't even qualify for what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I end up looking elsewhere anyway for music. And I enjoy playing just about anything, including CCM stuff. We have a lot of that in our church. We also happen to have a lot of stuff that's, well, I feel like any church kind of has its own little repertoire of songs. You can go from church to church, and so we have about 50 songs or so that we kind of roll over in our repertoire. And I'd say maybe 10 or 12 of those are songs that you could come from any church and any contemporary church and say, I've heard these 10 or 12 songs before. And I think that's probably true about most churches, or in my experience, that's been true. So I came from Vineyard, and there were songs that were very Vineyard that I'd never heard anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Another ministry that I was a part of, that they did songs that were very them, and I never heard anywhere else. So we're very much the same way. Those other songs that are very much we never heard anywhere else are probably from artists that 2 or 3 people total in the congregation have ever even heard of. And that's because I'm fans of their music, not what I hear on the river, or what's the popular one, like Heart FM or something. There's one that's like multiple cities.
Look, every Christian radio station in every major U.S. city is called The River, The Heart, or The Way. So
yeah,
regardless of where you are, if you're listening to a Christian radio station, it's going to be called one of those. It's fine.
Exactly.
In fact, I was thinking, if you don't live in Columbus and you're wondering what The River is, yes, it's the same type of radio station that you listen to in your major metropolitan area in the state that you live in.
Yes.
Same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's not me being a hater. That's me just saying, there's a lot of people who would probably be surprised to find out that I'm not a fan of CCM.
This might not be true because I haven't listened to The River in a really long time, but it feels like anytime a song gets popular in contemporary Christian music, they're so excited to have another one that they play the heck out of it.
What's the Barlow Girl song that they played for?
Never Alone.
Never Alone? Yes.
Okay, by the way, that song, there's a part in that song where the main vocal and the harmony sing 2 different words on a note.
On purpose?
It can't be on purpose, because throughout the chorus, they say one word most of the time, but in one instance, one of them says a different word. It's with and to. One of them says with, and one of them says to.
So one of them deviated from what was normally happening elsewhere in the song.
And I feel like a crazy person when I listen to it, because I'm like, do you hear it? It's right there. And everybody I try to point it out to is like, yeah, I've Googled it to see if it's a thing.
It's not that they can't hear it. It's they don't care enough to even talk about it. If I pretend I can't hear it, we don't have to have a whole conversation about how weird is it that they're singing 2 different words.
But anyway, there would be a song that would come out, and I'd be like, oh, I actually really like that song. And I'm like, just wait, I'm going to hate it in 2 weeks.
Oh, you like this song? Let me drill it into the ground for you.
Yeah. Anyway.
But
I have, let's see, I've got some good ones here.
I'll throw out a quick one. Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, that's sad.
I sat in a room. I distinctly remember how many people hyped this movie. And we had a really cool basement at our house where we grew up, and lots of people could sit around. Easily 4 or 5 of us in the room that were sitting and watching this movie, and we watched at least 30 or 40 minutes of it. Literally not a single laugh from anyone in the group. It's like the whole end of the group just agreed this isn't funny, and we weren't even talking about it out loud to kind of bash it, to like make people feel like they couldn't laugh. Just the energy was so muted for that movie. And I never tried to watch it again. And it was just so bad. Nobody laughed in the room. And there's at least one person that listens to our podcast that was there that's like, yep, I remember that time. Awful, awful movie.
I feel like that's similar to my Tiger King experience, that you just like it. I was behind the game just enough that like my expectations had gotten so inflated.
Maybe.
And then when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, it was weird, but not as weird as all that.
It wasn't as murdery as I thought it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think that it was like maybe a couple of those people thought it was funny, but because no one had laughed, they felt like, I can't laugh now because
I already explained that part. We hadn't even talked about it.
Or it strikes a chord with such a certain age group or style of humor that none of you just happen to be.
Look, maybe you're trying real hard to give it some credit. The whole high school seemed to think it was funny. We were like the only group of people, I guess maybe hive mind or something. I don't know. We all got in a room and the energy was just, it fell flat. It wasn't good.
Yeah,
okay.
No, I think there's some real, yeah.
Okay, you have one I don't like. I'm going to have one right now that you don't like.
All right, go ahead. You're wrong. It's fine.
Any, and I mean any, of the superhero TV shows.
Fair.
Yeah. Marvel or DC.
We're not including Marvel's Netflix shows.
I'm including all of those.
You didn't watch them. You didn't watch Daredevil.
I just never.
No.
I
never got into.
You said it's not. I tried and hated it. It's like it never appealed to me. The ones on CW, I know that's a whole different camp, but just let me.
Yeah.
They were so campy and poorly. The acting, and you said Daredevil's great. You said Punisher's great. I tried Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever, and I was like, oh, this is.
No, I watched most of those because I wanted more content to watch, not because they were well made. But to your credit, lots of people were watching them, especially our family, because we would kind of talk about what was happening in Arrow and Flash and some of the CW shows. But yeah, most of them weren't that well made. I'm with you.
Didn't care at all. I don't feel like I missed anything.
Can I rattle off some that'll make you upset? Okay.
I like being on a show with brothers.
I'm gonna do 4 in a row that you're just gonna get progressively madder. Lost, 24, Walking Dead, and Breaking Bad. Yeah. Also, never watched Mad Men, Downton Abbey. What other ones do I have to list? And I'm not saying that I wouldn't like any of those. I just never got caught up. Better Call Saul, Sons of Anarchy. I never watched it. I never watched any of those, or watched enough to want to stick around.
This is why this is the perfect second half to what we just talked about. Because for us, for 1/3 of us or 2/3 of us to love a show and say it was one of the best TV shows of all time, and for the other guy to be like, never got into it.
You've said that about Breaking Bad many times, that it's one of the best TV shows you've ever.
Yeah,
I did when you disappeared in the first half of this episode.
Yeah, and Sons of Anarchy.
Yeah.
Both of those.
I did watch most of the first season of Breaking Bad. I've never watched a minute of Sons of Anarchy. So I literally, it's like biker gang, right? That's all I know.
Yep.
Yeah. I know nothing else. Biker gang. Drama with biker gang.
Oh, there's a couple of biker gangs.
Yeah, there could be. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
there was a bunch in there.
There's this ATF agent with crazy eyes.
24 was huge, and I missed that whole. I think I watched the first half of the first season and never watched anymore. I missed that whole phenomenon around 24.
I did too, actually.
Oh, Sherry and I watched so much of 24.
It was huge. Everyone watched it. Everyone did.
Okay. Wow. All right. That hurts. I feel like I want to just like put you in a social an experiment where I make you watch them and then wait until you admit how great they are. And
you have to. No, you don't understand. You don't understand. My opinions aren't opinions. My opinions are based on fact.
Yeah. And you know me well enough that if I watched it and thought it was good, I would have no problem admitting it.
Yeah, it's not a pride thing.
It's not at all. There's whole things that I just missed. I didn't want to miss the whole Downton Abbey thing. I just missed it. It's a fact. It just happened. And here I am, and I've never seen it, and I don't even know how many years past it we are. But I missed so many key shows across like 4 or 5 years that were huge. Most of the stuff people talk about in HBO, like The Wire and The Sopranos.
The Wire's one, yeah.
The Wire, I've had people tell me that's one of the greatest shows of all time, and I've never seen it.
So many people said that about The Sopranos that I finally went back and watched it, and I'm like, it was good. It was good, but I had already watched those contemporary versions of groundbreaking television, so Sopranos felt far less groundbreaking because I'm like, that stuff's been done, and because they were all mimicking the Sopranos and what that was doing, so it didn't feel like. And you take that water cooler conversation layer out of it, and that makes a big difference because when people aren't talking about it week to week, you couldn't binge watch stuff then.
Yeah,
right. People were talking about it all week and building up to getting their popcorn and sitting down with their spouse and watching The Sopranos. But I've never seen an episode of The Wire.
Yeah, I've literally had people tell me it's one of the greatest shows they've ever seen. I've never seen a minute of it.
I wish we had a quarantine or something where I could just, sit down and like watch through it all.
Greatest shows of all time, and I'm binging Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Here's one, since we're on the topic of movies and TV, anime.
Yeah,
I feel like anime has always been kind of niche, but it's been but the people who are into it are way into it, and they're consuming all of it, which I think inflates the appearance of how many people are actually.
Yeah, if you're talking globally, anime is huge, but if you're talking in the U.S., it's big.
Well, I mean, even at art school, right? Like, so many people heavy into anime, and they're like, oh, this is like a bootleg copy of this, like, and I can't get past the fundamental way that it's animated. I can't get past that, like, really clunky, their mouths moving all the way to the bottom of their jawline. The tears shooting off the. Yeah, so anime I could just never really get into.
I tried a while ago. Vash the Stampede is something I watched for a while on Cartoon Network. And back when Adult Swim was a baby.
Adult cartoons? You watched adult cartoons?
Adult cartoons, yes.
I think that one makes sense, though, based on you jumping back into art school. That would make sense. Because from your point of view, at that time, that would have been wildly popular among everyone you were associating with. So it's like that one contextually, for sure, that one makes sense.
Here's one that won't. And listen, I like this thing. I just don't get why people like it so much.
Sure.
Pizza. I like pizza. I like bread. I like cheese. I like meat and vegetables. But people freak out about pizza. Like, I could eat pizza every day, 3 meals a day, every day for the rest of my life. And I'm like, I like it once every 2 weeks.
I was just saying today to my wife that I love a lot of foods. Most of them, almost all of them, I would get burned out on. There are two things that I feel like I could eat legitimately every day and never burn out on. One of them being pizza. The second one is sandwiches. I love sandwiches, like cold cut sandwiches.
Yeah,
but no, pizza. Yeah, no, I could eat pizza every day.
It drives Sherry nuts. She's like, really? And I'm like, I like it. I just don't like it as much as you all like it.
Yeah.
That's.
I understand.
Unpopular? Is it unpopular?
It is unpopular.
No. I'm not disputing the list that it's on your list and that it makes sense because 100% most people like act like they freak out over pizza. I'm just trying to figure out what that is. It's like we're using all of these examples of people. Everyone's got a thing that they get super excited about, and we're using examples from everyone's favorite thing. So like you look at the group that freaks out over pizza, and it's one group of people. And then you talk about the same people that freak out over Starbucks, and a few of the pizza people are there. But for the most part, there's a whole Starbucks group that's like they go nuts over Starbucks.
Yeah.
And so, like, because the food for me, like, I really love pizza, but I get sick of pizza faster than, like, cheeseburger and fries. I could probably eat a burger and fries every single day with the same toppings and not get sick of it. So, yeah, I get it. Most people, there's a whole culture built around, like, tacos and pizza as foods and being popular. So I get it.
Kendall, I think it's your turn.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go. Now, this is one that I included just to say something controversial. But The Office. And I'll explain that one. There's a part of me that feels like how you feel about pizza. It's like, I like The Office. It was fine. It was funny. I would never put it in my top 10 of anything.
I wouldn't put you in my top 10.
Dylan is seething right now.
See?
No, it's fine.
And now part of my thing with and then even at that, like with The Office, like I've heard that there was like a drop in viewership after Carell left. Mm-hmm. And I've got to say, I was gone before that, so I never made it that far.
I can console myself on this one very easily by saying you're not the type to go back and rewatch things, anyways.
Yeah.
So you're not going to appreciate a multi-layered, like, comedic show because you never get the chance to go. It's not that you don't have the capacity to appreciate it. You don't have the patience or desire to go back and watch it. And something that has lots of layers of humor, if you're not willing to go back and rewatch it, you can't appreciate it as much. So I can console myself in the fact that your unwillingness to go back and rewatch it is why you don't like it as much as you should.
Until you go back in time.
Your current opinion is wrong.
Until you go back in time and compare that my very first on my list of favorite TV shows was Parks and Rec.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which isn't as good as The Office, so that's weird.
That's better.
It's weird. No, it's very good though. So funny story about Parks and Rec.
Yeah, this is where the podcast broke up.
What you said? What? Maybe I understood all the layers the first time.
No, you didn't. No. So you didn't, because you didn't. So
guys, stop fighting.
No,
all I'm saying is it's unavoidable. It's unavoidable to see reruns of The Office. I certainly have,
because I've seen them. There's things about the show too that are very different. Like you've got to enjoy certain characters more than others. Like it took me a long time to enjoy Leslie Knope as a character.
Okay.
And that made it really hard for me to enjoy Parks and Rec. I tried multiple times to start Parks and Rec well after it had finished. I'd never watched any.
Yeah.
And I had to force myself to watch into season 2 when Ben and Rob Lowe's characters show up.
Yeah.
And then after the first viewing, I'm like, oh, it finally is a good show once they show up. And then after I'd watched it 2 times through all the way, I'm like, okay, Leslie's not a bad character. Like, I can enjoy Leslie now. I've seen her arc. I can appreciate her character now. But like, if I'd only ever watched it once, I would have been like, no, Parks and Rec is not good. And so it took me, but some people feel like, I know our dad is like, I hate Dwight. He's so annoying. I'm like, yeah, that's what he's supposed to be. He's supposed to be annoying.
Well, here's one thing I always thought
develops and has an arc, and then you learn to appreciate Dwight.
Here's one thing I always kind of thought. I mean, I still liked him overall as a character, but the things that people thought were hilarious about Jim, like from season 1, I thought Jim was a jerk. I'd be like, in real life, I'd want to punch that guy in the face.
Yeah, I don't think. It's interesting because this could be a whole long thing that it can't turn into. But, like, I don't think that many people actually think Jim's hilarious. I think people like the reaction that he gets out of other people, and they think that's funny, not that Jim is actually that funny.
I'm not saying he was funny or not. I'm saying he was a jerk.
I
disliked him. In my heart, he was antagonist.
Yeah, my point is you thought he wasn't funny. And so my counterpoint to that is I don't think actually that many people think he's funny. I think people enjoy the reactions that he gets. But yeah, he would be kind of a jerk. And you're supposed to, from the beginning, you're supposed to look at him and Dwight like it's okay because they have a dueling weird banter type relationship.
It even wasn't it wasn't even just like him and Dwight, although that was obviously a big part of it. It was also like you know, him and Pam, and I don't know. I mean, yeah, her you know, her boyfriend was a big dumb idiot, but still, like, he's still moving in on her, you know what I mean? Like that's distasteful. And then the way he, I don't know, just his whole attitude of how he was better and smarter than everyone else in the office just always annoyed me about him.
And there's the smudgeness.
Yeah. But anyway, so there was that about the Office. But no, so like I said, it's unavoidable to see reruns of The Office. Mm-hmm. So certainly I have re-seen episodes, and they were fine. I enjoyed them, but not nearly as much as before.
Yeah.
And
so as all these posers playing this unpopular opinions game on Facebook,
yeah,
that is one of the ones that people are saying. And
The Office is one?
Yeah. I've seen it on multiple people's top 10. They're like, I don't see what everybody saw. Why? Like, I know this is the most controversial of my 10, but I didn't like The Office. What's the big deal? So,
yeah, I think that one's tough because there's a lot of people who really fell in love with the show, like myself, and most people did. So it's a great one for your list, Kendall, because most people really did love The Office.
Yeah,
its replayability is really high. Netflix has extended the legs of that show by another decade.
Oh yeah,
at least, if not 2 or potentially 3 more decades. But sometimes it's just hard to accept that something you love a lot, somebody else just doesn't like. And
that's fine. It's fine.
It's tough, and that's exactly what this list is. So it's a good one for the list.
Here are 2 that, because of my, like we've always said, we're in geek culture, and then there's levels within that. But because of our proximity to these things, I find it interesting that I never really got into comics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would buy and flip through comics to look at the artwork.
Yeah.
And I would never read them.
Yeah.
And I was never one that put them in protective sleeves and traded, and like, what's the value of never, not once, ever? Part of that is a generational thing, I think. Like, even a couple of years before me, guys were really into it. But comics.
I think you get credit for that one on your list because of art school again. Like, I would say that's still pretty niche to actually be into comics, but you get credit for that one because you were probably around a ton of people who were. So for you, that probably felt super
yeah. Yeah, well, and here's something I think I said in like the very first episode. I firmly believe that there are a lot more people who say they used to read comic books than there are people who used to read comic books.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah. And then the next one is, and again, art school context, conventions. So like comic conventions, movie conventions, sci-fi conventions, Star Wars. We did go to one Star Wars convention, but like that's a very you're deep in it now. Like whatever your area of interest, you're deep in it. And other artists will go and they'll set up a table and they'll draw for people and they'll like have their art books sitting out and try to hawk their art. And this is my sketchbook that I got hardbound that you can buy. And the whole convention scene, car conventions, motorcycle conventions, tattoo conventions.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel like with things like that, oftentimes there's something that feels disingenuous to me almost about some of those types of conventions. So like, I don't know. It's like tattoos. I like tattoos. If I were to go to a tattoo convention, it was like, well, this isn't what I like about the experience, right? Yeah. So for me, it's the experience of going into a tattoo shop, sitting down with an artist, discussing the thing, watching what they can do with the words you gave them, and then sort of talking, connecting with that person, and with my wife sitting there next to me usually, and that whole process, like that's all of that is tied into why I like getting tattoos. I go to a convention, and which I've never been to one, but this is just an example. Like it's like the experience isn't there. The whole reason why I like it's not there.
Interesting.
After that story, I did find myself at a tattoo convention once, only because one of my favorite caricature artists was there. He wasn't doing tattoos; he was doing just caricatures on paper, but he was drawing you as a zombie. And so he would take all your hobbies and interests and then like incorporate that into your caricature.
That's fun.
So if you were an artist also, like he'd shove a pencil through your head and he'd like make part of your skin falling off. So it was like a spin on caricature. And he was pretty popular on social media and he had a few books out. So I was like, if that's where he is, I'm going to go and get drawn by this guy. But I got to see the subculture of tattoo convention. And these artists from all over the world where people have been on waiting lists for years to get tattooed by their favorite artists. And people are just laying tattoo guns everywhere. Just I'm like, this is certainly a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something to behold for sure. Okay, you guys got some more?
Yeah, speaking of zombies, the whole horror movie genre. Just didn't, and it's not like usually the first reaction is like a little scary for you. Like, no, I'm not. I'm an adult. I'm not scared to go sit in a movie with actors and stages and makeup. I don't find the genre entertaining. It's not a. I'm not the thrill seeker. So that type of thing is not interesting to me at all.
Sure.
And it's not that I've never seen any. I've seen some in theaters. One of them made me like sick. It was like the motion camera. One of them that was motion camera that like made me physically nauseous in the theater.
Yeah.
Oh, like a handheld?
Yeah.
Like Blair Witch kind of thing.
Like a handy cam type. Yeah. Like one of those movies was one of the last ones I saw in theaters. I'm like, this is terrible. So if there's an adventure element, like I remember when probably junior high school, The Mummy with Brendan Fraser came out. Corey, you went to see it at the theater and you came back and told me about it. I'm like, I don't like scary movies. You're like, well, it's not scary. It's like there's some parts that are scary because of the villain, but like it's an adventure, like an Egyptian adventure movie. And I'm like, oh, well, that I would enjoy more. But just here's a bad guy trying to kill, or a villain or a creature trying to kill whoever. without something else going on. I don't know why. The whole genre is uninteresting to me.
Yeah.
So there's one.
Which Kendall loves.
Huh?
I do love horror. And I generally speaking like all the different definitions of horror. Scary, like the Mummy. There's not a single horror movie fan who would even consider the Mummy to even possibly be a horror film.
No, it's an adventure movie.
Yeah, most horror movie fans would also look at you and say like movies like Scream are not horror movies. Horror movies, there's more to it than just being a scary story. So there needs to be a repulsive story, basically. It needs that's the point of a horror film, is to repulse, and there's many different ways to do that. But that has nothing to do with whether or not you should like it. As a matter of fact, that explains why, like, I have to understand why people wouldn't like it. Like, what else do I got here? So that said, let me go with American Idol. I don't like, or really, I would say any singing shows, with one exception, and that is The Voice. I have always liked The Voice. But all of the other talent shows, and American Idol included, to me, it's so obvious how produced they are, how scripted they are, like how they're you could tell that they're coaching these people up before they go in for their audition, because they're trying to make an interesting TV show. Mm-hmm. And when you do that so much, it becomes obvious to everybody. And I feel like that's why American Idol is where it is now instead of where it used to be. Like it in effect started this whole genre, and then literally everyone in the genre did a better job at it than American Idol did.
And then they got passed.
And then they got passed by
everybody. The best thing going for that was the people who were horrible.
I know, and that's only for the first handful of episodes.
And then that goes away.
And now it's like, oh, okay, so now we're just back to the BS. All right, bye.
Yeah, you're right. That the high production, and for me, it's always the order. Like the order of either when somebody performed in an evening or when people got eliminated. I'm like, that wasn't the real order.
Yeah.
They just played it back in that order to make it the most whatever.
Exactly. Exactly. So The Voice, I had never really got that feeling from The Voice that The Voice was produced. I'm sure it probably is. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. But it seems to not be. I'll put it that way. So with the exception of The Voice, any singing show I do not like.
You have some more on your list. Do you want to go, or?
I mean, some of them are probably pretty boring. Guitar players will probably understand what I'm talking about when I'm saying guitar gear collecting or building up a pedal board. And there's some guitar players that will have just like walls of shelves filled with different effects and things that they just dink around in their basement by themselves with for a long time. Even when I play electric guitar, which isn't that much these days. But I mean, my pedal board was always 3 pedals and the 3 same pedals every time, and that's all I wanted to use. So never really got into collecting guitar gear. Fantasy football. It's just something that when I was going over this with my wife, and she was like, I'm trying to think of reasons why I like you instead of other guys. And fantasy football was on her list. That she appreciates that. Like, as much as I'm a big sports fan, I love football. I spend as many hours watching football as any other guy on Saturdays and Sundays during season. But fantasy football is something I've never gotten into. Really, video games, I haven't owned a console, since I was like 19. So, but the extent of my video gaming has been on my phone ever since then. And I didn't have a smartphone then. So there was a long time where I just didn't play video games. Also, music-related pads and loops. That's a very niche thing to talk about, pads and loops. If people know what pads and loops are, suffice to say that they'll understand, and just say that I think they're icky and I don't like them. So that gets rid of a lot of my list.
You have any more, Dill?
No, I think that's it. If we were back in the PS3 generation, I might have been able to say PlayStation instead of Xbox. I never got into the whole how big Xbox was and the draw of the. It's fine, but that's pretty much. It varies by generation, but that's probably a half and half by gamers of who likes one or the other, anyways.
Yeah.
If we're doing a context one for having worked in tech so long. Most people that have worked in tech as long as I have got into PC building. It's wildly popular with the type of people that I've worked with and whatever, and it's never something I've been interested in doing. Sourcing, those people are constantly upgrading pieces and parts of their computer, and it's just not something I care about. So that would be another pretty big one. If somebody's into that, I'm always up to learning about it. But it's not something I see myself wanting to do.
Yeah, it's like every 6 to 8 years I have to learn what all that stuff means so I can inform myself to buy a new computer.
Yeah.
And that's all I know about it.
Yeah, this is the perpetual I'm sure there's other hobbies like it, but I don't have one like it. It's the perpetual upgrade. Everything is constantly it's probably like car people that are constantly upgrading kits and parts and spoilers and rims and performance features, and that's what the PC building is like. Like there's a new graphics card comes out and they want to go get this and then upgrade the hard drive, and there's a new monitor with a better refresh rate. And
just do a Google image search of gaming PCs, like the guys who have they have a clear panel and then all these fans and then neon cords running through it and all the neon matches and Alienware and it's a whole, and that's like anything you're into, there are levels and you can go way down the rabbit hole. But speaking of gaming, and this is another context one because of my, hanging out in geek culture for a while now, just like tabletop RPGs and strategy gaming, like guys meeting at a comic book shop with green felt and a grid and little fake mountains and little people and cards. And not just D&D. I'm just all the rolling the dice with Warhammer and all the stuff. It just seemed like the barrier to entry was so high. I got to buy and paint all these figures and
you might as well get a hobby like aviation. It's probably cheaper and there's less stuff. Just buy a plane and a big warehouse to put it in.
We've talked about country music. I don't really, that's a whole thing, but other than Chris Stapleton, country music, whatever.
I'm there with you on that one. Just not my genre.
I love country music. Yeah.
Outside of a few mainstream examples, I don't really watch much sci-fi TV or movies. The whole sci-fi genre, other than the obvious Star Wars, I was okay, that's fun.
Yeah.
And then lastly,
Star Wars is sci-fi anyway, so it's perfectly fine, acceptable to leave out of the sci-fi genre.
It's a swashbuckling space opera.
It's a fantasy adventure film. Mm-hmm. It's not sci-fi.
Lastly, people who say "and historic."
I didn't even see that earlier.
It's correct. It is a correct way to say that, but it's so annoying and doesn't feel right. Chris Cuomo just said it the other night on TV, and he was like, "This is an historic event," and I'm like, "What's happening in the world?"
Is that really common?
Oh yeah, and it's correct because if you pronounce historic like historic, then because it starts with an I sound, saying "and" first makes sense.
Right.
But nobody pronounces historic. Yeah. So we say this is a historic event.
Right. So I feel like maybe this isn't like the technical grammar rule, but I feel like it should be that it's that well, the a or an is probably acceptable both ways.
Yeah.
Grammatically. And to me, it's just obvious then that like the qualifier is how you pronounce historic. So if you say historic, then don't say "and." That should be wrong.
Like in America, you mean?
Yeah, like in America, yeah.
Like if you say historic, like an American?
Yes. Historic.
You guys have any more?
Okay, so one more, and that is Disney stuff. So Disney kid stuff. Like I feel like a lot of my friends were into Disney and knew about the Mickey Mouse Club and everything as kids, and I just didn't, and I didn't care. My family never went to Disney World or Disneyland. I've never been to either one, and I don't care. My kids have seen some of that stuff before, but I don't care if they get into it. Like, as a matter of fact, I think I'd kind of rather they didn't, because I've seen some of like the Mickey Mouse Club stuff and some of the other stuff that they watch, and the Mickey Mouse Club stuff is the stuff that I probably like the least. If my kids beg me, maybe someday we'll go to Disneyland or Disney World. But, I mean, my wife is really going to have to push that forward, because I don't feel like I was gypped of anything, and I don't feel like I'm gypping my kids of anything. I don't feel like I don't feel what a lot of Americans feel, that you need to have a pilgrimage in your lifetime to complete your religion of being an American to Disneyland at least once. And if you don't, then you're going to have social issues in your future because you were deprived of your childhood. I don't believe that about Disney at all. And part of me is that the one in California is fine, but like around here, everybody goes to the one in Florida, and I have no desire to ever be in the state of Florida ever again. Really, that entire, so like North Carolina and South, like that whole area of the country, like I just don't want to spend any time there.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of our listeners in Florida.
I have friends in Florida. I do.
Appreciate you.
Or used to, anyway. It's a weather thing. It's humidity just doesn't. I don't know. Humidity I hate. And like Southern California, beautiful weather. Like I'd go there. I would move there right now. If I could afford it, which most people can't. But Florida, why do people want to go to Florida? Like why do people from a weather standpoint, like the humidity is so oppressive. I don't understand, like it's winter, and so like Florida is where I think I'll have a good time. I'm like, well, I mean, these days, planes can take you there, or they can take you to, freaking anywhere else.
Don't get Kendall started on Florida.
No, it's just one of those things that I don't get. I don't understand. Like, do you not feel humidity? Like, is that something that you don't experience?
One of my favorite bits about Florida is that, do you know why? It's something to the effect of, do you know why people live in places like Ohio and Minnesota? Because all the things that live in Florida year round that never die from the cold. Yeah, those are dinosaurs. Literal dinosaurs still live in the swamps of Florida because you never experience weather that can kill them off. That's why places like Ohio have 4 nice seasons where everything dies in one season, everything tries to come back, then it gets hot, then they try to hide, and then it all dies again.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I like all good Ohioans. I love the all 4 seasons thing. But even still, like I would still happily move to San Diego. So it's not that. It's specifically the humidity is the thing that like
the thing that lets the dinosaurs thrive.
Yeah. Why do people want to go to a place where they can't breathe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, thank all of you for joining us for episode 44 of From the Middle. we sincerely hope that in a time of staying at home and not being able to get out and socialize with your friends and eat at your favorite restaurants and hang out with your church friends, that this podcast brings you some joy and a conversation other than coronavirus and what's going on. So we hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you get to laugh with us. If, however, during this time, on a serious note, if, however, during this time you are less than happy and you're feeling kind of down and dejected and the isolation is getting to you and you feel your mental wellness slipping, reach out to a friend or family member. This time is really hard for people that struggle with those things, and we are sensitive to that, especially for Dylan and I. In light of some things that have gone on for us this week in our extended family. So reach out to a friend, to a family member, to a professional nonprofit or organization or helpline, and just let people know that you're struggling because you matter and somebody loves you. And if nobody loves you, we love you. And so that's important to us. So anyway, thanks for listening. You guys stay safe out there. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.